Good morning, children. Now, welcome back to our science class. We have already completed chapter Reproduction in Plants. Today, we are going to have a quick recap of this chapter. Now, let's start with the definition of reproduction. So, what is reproduction? Reproduction is the production of new individual from their parents. Now, in case of plants, there are two main types of reproduction. They are asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. Now, children, you already know that the vegetative parts of the plant are those parts which help in the growth of the plant, and they include roots, stem, and leaves. Whereas when we talk about the reproductive part, they are the flowers and they help in reproduction. Now, in case of plant, there are two types of reproduction. One is asexual and second is sexual reproduction. In asexual reproduction, new plants are formed without the formation of seeds. And in sexual reproduction, new plants are produced from seeds. Now, when we compare asexual reproduction with sexual reproduction, we find out that in asexual reproduction, only one parent is needed, whereas in case of sexual reproduction, two parents are required. One is a male parent and a female parent. In case of asexual reproduction, gametes are not involved, whereas in sexual reproduction, gametes are involved. In asexual reproduction, the offsprings are genetically identical. We call them clones, whereas in sexual reproduction, offsprings are not genetically similar. There are variations. Now, let us discuss what are the types of asexual reproduction. First is binary fission. And what happens in binary fission? Yes, in binary fission, a single parent cell divides into two daughter cells. We have this in amoeba, paramecium, and bacteria. Now, in budding, parent cell produces bud. This gets detached from the parent plant and develops into a new individual. We have examples like yeast and hydra. In case of spore formation, reproduction occurs by the formation of spores. These spores, under favorable condition, give rise to new individual. We have this mode of reproduction in ferns, fungi, and bacteria. In fragmentation, an organism divides into fragments and each fragment grows into a new individual. We have Spirogyra as an example for this. Coming to regeneration. In case of regeneration, an organism body breaks up into one or several parts and each part has the capacity to grow into a new individual. Next, we have vegetative reproduction. In case of vegetative reproduction, organism produces a new individual by a vegetative part of the plant. We have this in potato, onion, ginger, and mint. Now, coming to the artificial vegetative propagation. When the vegetative propagation takes place by human interference, then that type of vegetative propagation is known as artificial vegetative propagation. We have cutting, grafting, layering, etc. as methods of artificial vegetative propagation. Coming to sexual reproductive system. In case of flowering plants. Flowering plants also reproduce by means of sexual reproduction. And as we have already discussed, flower is the main or part of the plant which involves in the sexual reproduction. Flowers produce the male and female gametes, and these male and female gametes produce seeds which finally grow into new plants. Now let us see what are the steps which are involved in sexual reproduction. First step is pollination, then we have germination of pollen grain, then fertilization, and the next one we have the formation of fruit and seed. Now, let us discuss the reproductive floral organs. Let us discuss the male part of a flower. Stamen is the male part of the flower. Stamen has two parts, an anther and a filament. Anther is the part that produces pollen, and filament is the stalk-like structure which holds the anther. And pollen grain consists of male gametes. Now, let us see the female part, that is the pistil or carpel. In case of female part or the pistil or carpel, we have stigma, style, ovary, ovule. Stigma is the tip or the sticky tip which traps pollen. Then we have a long cylindrical tube from stigma to the ovary, and this tube is known as a style. And then we have a swollen structure that is called ovary. Now inside the ovary there is the presence of ovule. Now these ovule contain egg cell, and this egg cell develop into a seed when it is fertilized. Now let us see the next step, that is pollination. So what is pollination? It's the process of transfer of pollen grain from the anther to the stigma of a flower of the same species for reproduction. There are two types of pollination: self-pollination, cross-pollination. Self-pollination, when the pollination occurs within the same flower or other flower but on the same plant. When we talk about cross-pollination, when the pollination occurs between two different flowers of the same species which are found in two different plants. Now let us see what happens in fertilization. Actually, what is fertilization? Fertilization is the fusion of the male and female gamete. Now where it takes place? It takes place inside the ovule. Now let us see what are the steps of fertilization. First of all, the pollen grain which is present on the stigma. Now each pollen grain grows into a pollen tube. Now this pollen tube reaches the ovule where a nucleus of a male cell joins with the nucleus in the female cell. And this is what is called pollination. Sorry, this is what is called fertilization. Now, let us see what is fruit. Fruit we defined as the ripened ovary of a flowering plant, and a fruit contains seeds, and these fruits include apples, oranges, plum, etc. Now, let us see what is a seed. A seed contains the developing plant or the embryo in a protective coat. Now, these seeds they are actually formed from the ovules which are fertilized in the ovary. A seed consists of an embryo, then it has one or two cotyledons, and a seed has a protective seed coat. Now, coming to the next topic, that is seed dispersal. What is seed dispersal? The movement or the transport of seed away from the parent plant. This is called seed dispersal. Now, what is the need of seed dispersal? Seed dispersal is needed for the following reason. First of all, it helps nature in scattering of seeds, and the seeds get adequate sunlight to grow into healthy plants. Plants, if the seeds are not dispersed, then the plants do not grow too very close to each other. If the seeds are very close to each other, then the plants will not grow into, all the seeds will not germinate and grow into plants. Now let us see what are the different ways by which dispersal of seeds takes place. Seed may be dispersed by wind or by mechanical forces, by water, by animal. When we talk about water dispersal, then in this water dispersal, the seeds of the plant which are found near to the water bodies are mostly dispersed by water. Now these fruits may have air spaces and corky, that's why they float. We have examples like palm and coconut for this. Coming to animal dispersal, Some dry fruit may attach and cling to the animal's fur. This is one reason one way by which the seed is dispersed by animal. Or some have velcro-like hook that cling to fur, or other may also have some sticky substance which help them in adhering to the host. Now come to the next way of seed dispersal, that is wind dispersal. Now, for the seeds to disperse by wind, it is important that the seed should be light in weight and they should have some structures like wings or maybe parachute which help them in dispersal. So, we have examples like maple seed and ash seed which are dispersed by cotton and dandelion which are dispersed by wind. Then there is another method by which seed is dispersed, that is by explosion. That is, sometimes the seeds come out of the fruit by an explosion. We have beans as an example for this way by which seeds are dispersed. So now I hope, children, the topic reproduction in plants is clear to you, and thank you all for watching this.